Good day. Welcome to our webinar of Meetingwizard, where today we're going to talk about learning innovations. So we're going to talk about how classrooms evolve and what learning innovations are out there. And we're going to use Meetingwizard as a group decision support system to help and support a group. In this case, as an example, the teacher in front of the classroom working in a hybrid environment. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain you shortly what Meetingwizard is, what are top 5 requirements for a meeting that you can facilitate as a teacher in the classroom, where do we come from, and our 25 years of experience and history, also the benefits and how to get started. And we're going to make an agenda ourselves in the Meetingwizard system. And so as a teacher, you use Meetingwizard potentially in the classroom to teach students. So we're going to show you how it works to make an agenda, so a classroom structure. And then we're going to teach you and learn you how to run such an agenda and actually flipping the classroom to make the students more active in the class. But first, we're going to start with a small background of what are typical frustrations also from students in classrooms, in the meetings. Most of the time that there should be a clear structure and a clear objective, what is required from the student in such a session. So it needs to be very clear. And of course, a experienced teacher, professor or facilitator that facilitates the classroom. And in the end, the majority of the students also requires a structured documentation of everything that they've done during the class and the idea that they are being heard. And so to avoid the law of the decibel, that the students that have the most active voice are heard the most. And so really establish collaboration. Meetingwizard basically helps you by providing a 100% digital platform for organizations like universities and applied universities to facilitate those meetings, sessions, classrooms, etc. So I'm going to highlight where we come from. And so this is a picture of 25 years ago when we started in a group decision room in the Netherlands, the first group decision room out there worldwide. It was basically physically, and later on it evolved over time to more a virtual one, also with mobile devices. And nowadays we are with completely mobile devices enabled, so you can use it with your iPhone, your iPad, but also multiple operating systems where students can actually log on. Completely safe. We do this on purpose because we see the majority of the university collecting a huge amount of data, which should be kept private or very confidential, because it's confidential research data. And the majority of the tools that's being used at the moment to collect student information or facilitate classrooms is freeware. And as we know, freeware does not have the interest of protecting your data. It has the majority of the time the interest of selling your data. And so we completely focus on a general data protection regulation. And so the EU Data Privacy Act. So we completely adhere to that. Fully cloud in the Netherlands store, so there's no exchange of data to other countries. What are the biggest benefits that you can have with Meetingwizard as a group support system that facilitates flipping the classroom? So one is it's completely online and physically, so you both use it in a physical classroom as well as a virtual classroom, and it's being supported like we do today with Zoom or Teams or WebEx. It's super easy to use for the teachers, and so providing an agenda for your class is quite easy to set up, and it's quite easy to also apply it in the class and roll your class. So you'll see that today as well. Everybody again has a voice because everybody needs to participate. You can, as a teacher, completely see who did not submit an answer, and you can encourage the group to see if everybody has submitted their answer and did his part in the classroom. So ways to facilitate during the class is that first you set up the agenda, and you do that as a teacher yourself, and then you activate the users into logging in to the system. So you can do that both ways. You can do that via the QR code. That's what we're going to do today. You can also email them, for example, in advance prior to the meeting, or you can do that right away. Well, another thing what we're going to do, and I'm also going to do that today, but you won't see that in the video, is that I'm going to copy the URL, in this case in the chat, for example, in the chat function of Zoom or Teams. So participants can immediately log in to the software and enter the classroom. So both via the QR code, via mail, and in this case via the chat. A very important option that we provide is that you can have anonymous participation. So for example, in social sciences or behavioral sciences, we sometimes apply very sensitive topics, and we want to investigate sensitive topics, and you want to do that anonymously due to respect to the participants. So that's a possibility that you can use or can do. So we're going to start the meeting. I'm going to close the presentation now, and I'm going to share my screen where you see the login screen of Meetingwizard. And just to be sure and check with the participants, thumbs up if you see it. If you see the initial login page of Meetingwizard, yeah, excellent. So what you see here, this is my interface as a teacher or as a meeting facilitator. Of course, you can also use this in other settings, like in business environments or research environments. But initially, you as a facilitator of the meeting will see this screen. So what you see here is that I have a couple of agendas. In this case, I already have a couple of agendas in my system, and I'm going to add a new agenda here. I could do that later on. But I can also use a library of already predefined agendas that you can use and you can simply import. And so for example, I can import this coaching session for a research project, or I can, for example, this mediation agenda that we use to mediate between both parties, you can simply import this predefined agenda into Meetingwizard and you can immediately run with it. So if you use, for example, in your classroom every year the same method of applying a certain classroom agenda, you can simply draft it and then import it again and again and again and reuse it. And so this is the list of predefined agendas that's already in the Meetingwizard system. So another thing what I want to display here is that you can also change, in this case, the logo of your organization. So if you use Meetingwizard, you can adapt the logo to your institute. The good thing is that after running a meeting, the participants will receive the report and it's immediately then set up and visualized in the logo of your organization, including the coloring code. So this is the main menu. We're going to start with an agenda today. The agenda for today is that I want to collect from the participants today in the group the most important learning innovations for the coming years. So I'm going to make an agenda. I give it a general topic, in this case, a general name of the meeting. So in this case, learning innovations. I can do it either in English or in French or in Dutch, depending on the group that I have in the classroom. And I can also determine the deletion period of the data. So for example, if I'm going to collect during the session very sensitive data, I can set the retention scheme of the data on a very short period. And I'm asking the participant, please collect your data so it's not in the system anymore. We do this due to the GDPR data protection regulation. In this case, I'm putting it at 1 year. I want to offer the possibility to share the report with the participants afterwards. I'm going to left this blank, private, because then it's only visible for me. And the agenda may only be changed by me. I'm also going to leave this blank because I'm not going to use this function today. Then I'm going to enter a group. So in this case, I have a group of students, but perhaps I also have a couple of teachers in the room. So I can allocate groups here. This helps if you do a large-scale research, for example, with a large group, let's say 100 people, you can distinguish the outcome of all the participants in groups, and that helps sometimes to do a data analysis afterwards. So this is the setup of the agenda. So I've already set up the first structure. We basically have three types of structure that you provide to your classroom agenda. Most of the time we start with a brainstorm. After the brainstorm, we're going to order them. We do that on the flipboard, and then you're going to do something with it. You have a discussion, you want to vote perhaps, you want to allocate points to it, you want to have a decision made, you want to, for example, prioritize it. There is a decision. So this is the structure that we normally offer. There's an introduction, that's the manual introduction. We do a brainstorm, then we do the flipboard, and then the voting. We start with the manual. So the manual means that you do a generic introduction where you do the explanation of the topics, for example. So in this case, I'm going to tell you where we're going to examine together the learning innovations for the coming years. This is a normal step, but as a teacher, I can add here information about what is the objective of this session. So I mention here, for example, objectives and other goals that I'm aiming for. I can also add an external source like a video or a PowerPoint presentation, YouTube, or whatever that people can in the session take a look at, or as a sort of an introduction movie. So if I use here the source of in this case, a YouTube video, the participants will see that video, they can have a look at a short clip, and then they enter the discussion. So first step, I want to do a brainstorm with you guys in this group where I want to collect the most important, to your opinion, the learning innovations. So I'm making here the first step, the most important learning innovations. And in this case, I'm going to ask you in the instruction, which I'm going to add later on, to raise in a brainstorm the three most important learning innovations. So I allow the input to 3. If I have a large group, let's say 100 people, you don't want to have too much topics raised, because then as a facilitator it becomes hard to manage 300 items. So then you might limit this, but you can allow here a limit to what's being raised. What I also want to do is that I want to order this. So I want to order that the last item that somebody submits, I see as the first item. Then I can, for example, allow participants to view input from the others. But if it's, for example, a sensitive topic, or you want to have people really think about a certain topic, I can leave this blank. So I'm not going to activate it. And the other thing is that I, for example, can show here the group. So I've allocated students and teachers in this case. So I mark this so I can immediately see in my data set, after the collection, after running the classroom, which group has given me which data. And I allow mutation of the own items. And so you can, during the session, if you think, well, I want to have another topic, I want to change a topic, we can allow you to mutate that. Then we're in the file editor is an option that we're not going to use today, but I'm going to give you a small instruction. Please raise your top 3 most important learning innovation. So for the participants now in this demo, please already think about what is for your, what's to your opinion the most important learning innovation. And because we're going to ask you that later on. So the first step, the brainstorm is made. Then I'm going to make the flipboard. So you can compare this to the physical flipboard where you put normally those yellow pages on, those yellow stickers. This is the virtual version of that. So this is the flipboard. And in this case, I want to order and perhaps categorize the topics that you gave me in the previous step. So my input for this step is the brainstorm that we just made, the agenda step. So all the items that you raised are going to be put on the flipboard. I'm going to broadcast this to all the participants because we are going to do this online, and so I want everybody to see it. I don't want to have numbering because you can put it on, but that's an option. And we're going to give you a small, or myself in this case, a small instruction. Order the brainstorm items. For me, as a teacher, I can remember, oh yeah, this is in this step, I'm going to order the brainstorm items and categorize them. So this is done. Then the last step, that's the voting. So I want you guys in the session vote on the most important learning innovation. And I want you guys to, in this case, vote from a scale from 1 to 10. So 10 is the most important one, 1 is the least important one. I can also have the option here to either choose or rank or vote or other items, but that's something that, in this case, is optional. So I'm going to do for the demo a 1 to 10, and I'm going to allow empty fields. And so if you're not certain about the topic and you don't want to vote, you can have an abstain here. So I'll allow empty fields to fill in. I can also force students to put in an item and vote an item regardless. So they need to vote. In this case, I'm going to allow that. I'm not going to allow anonymous voting because I want to have the discussion in the classroom with the students, and I want to directly point out to certain students, hey, this is your voting, and what do you think about it? And I want to allow to show sub-items to the Flipboard. I'm going to show you later on how that works. A small instruction, please vote from 1 to 10, and where 10 is the most important one. I do this on purpose because a clear instruction really helps you in facilitating a large group. It's immediately clear what they should do. So please vote, the top 10. So this is the voting step. So now I'm ready. So this is good. So I see that the input voting items field is required. So this is of course a test to see if you guys are all alert. So I miss here this step. That means that to continue with my next step, I need data from a previous step. So I'm going to, in this case, use the items on the Flipboard. So first we do the manual introduction, then we do the brainstorm about learning objectives, then we're going to order and categorize them, and then we're going to vote. Ready for it? So what I'll do, you can either log in via this QR code, or in this case, I can share you the link via the chat. So I'll do that. So you are being facilitated there. So let me see if I can, yeah, there it is. So now I'm going to put that in the chat. So I give the students the opportunity to log in via two methods, the QR code. So if they're sitting at home with their iPhone, that also helps me to enable that they're not going to use the iPhone for doing social media. They need to log in, or I can send an email where they can log in via email or via the chat. And then everybody enters, in this case, the Meetingwizard room by simply accessing the URL. Going back to the meeting, so I see Elsa there, I see Karel there, I see Megan there, already logged in. This also helps me to, in this case, encourage the group to log in. And so I can also immediately check participation of certain people to see if they are actually there in the classroom. I'm also going to log in. I always like to also log in, so I'm going to, if a student asks me, can you please provide me with the QR code again? I'm going to display this QR code. And in this case, you see this ID, this meeting ID here. This is an open meeting ID, so you can use this to share that with the group. But if I want to close my classroom door, I'm going to put on this register button, and then it's not possible to log in anymore. I'll leave it open for now because we have some people who still want to log in, but this enables you to really close your classroom and that there's nobody able to log in anymore. During the logging in, you also see that we request your consent to make sure that we have your consent for the data collection that we are going to do during the class. I also logged in, so yeah, there am I. You can see my name here, and then we're going to start. So the first step is the brainstorm about the most important learning innovations. So you can raise your most important learning innovations. So group, please raise your items. And we already can see as a teacher who is logged in. Virtual reality. That's an interesting topic. Yeah, virtual reality, by the way, is the way how we teach students to work in a virtual world, for example, with a virtual reality class. And they are experiencing a real world or a fictive world via their, in this case, VR glasses. Something different than, in this case, augmented reality. Yeah? The distinction between virtual reality and augmented reality comes down with the device that you require and the experience itself. Augmented reality uses real world settings, virtual reality uses completely virtual environments. So one is real, the other one is virtual. So we see in this case gaming, gamification, very good. We see education outside the classroom, something that students take after the official lecture at home, work in groups. That's becoming more and more important. Group collaboration, massive online courses. So big groups that dial in via video and follow courses by professors, for example, overseas. We see, let's see what else do we have? We have 3D printing, very interesting, because normally, specifically in medical sciences, we see that it's becoming more and more important to reproduce specific, in this case, for example, bones, restructuring that via 3D printing. So we have quite some interesting topics that we've collected during the brainstorm. So that's good. Let's see if I can also enter one, my favorite. And I have another one. And then we have, I think, a very interesting list of learning innovation that we see arise during the coming years. So thank you for that. My favorite one is design science research, so actually more focused on building stuff than actually learning stuff. So we're going to show the details. This is something that I can share. I'm not going to do that today because we are going to the Flipboard. I promise you that we are going to take every item that we have brainstormed to the Flipboard. So now you see the virtual Flipboard. And what we can do here is we can categorize it. So I can either categorize, for example, specific topics, or if I see some double items. So, for example, action research could be part of design science research. So I can easily slide this under this topic. So I can slide this and make subtopics. I can also add new ones if somebody in the group says, well, yeah, but I have this item. So for example, in this case, I'm going to add an item. And so I'm going to add, for example, big data technology. Data. Because we see more and more data being collected. So we have a group of nice items. Let's see if I can add something here. Virtual reality, and I'm going to show you how you can use subgroups. So somebody, for example, can add here virtual gaming as a subtopic. Save the changes, and I'm going to take this one to my last step, which is voting. So I've had the group discussed during the Flipboard stage, have the discussion, categorize it, and for example, undouble it. I need to take some time for that. For the demo, that's undoable, but normally you take time for that to have the group discuss it. And then we're going to take it to the voting stage, where we're going to ask the participants to vote on the items. In this case, we're going to ask you, please vote your most important learning initiatives, or from a scale from 1 to 10. And so 1 is less important, 10 is really important. So please fill in your scores. And then we're going to see if we can find some consensus or some deviations in the results. What you also can do is you can add comments, and we use that most of the time in social sciences or behavioral science to make sure that we also collect qualitative data. In this case, to examine certain viewpoints of the students. So let's see who already submitted. Karel already submitted. And see if we have the other ones. Yeah. So what I can do during the course, people can submit their items and their voting, and I can share that on the screen, real time, what the output of the group is. So in this case, I see that virtual reality has scored the highest. And so apparently this group finds virtual reality the most important learning initiative, learning innovation for the future. I can also see that some people did not submit yet, so I can encourage Elsa and Megan to submit. If you, for example, want to speed up the process of voting, if you want to have the group discussion and you want to have students discuss among each other certain topics, you can allow that. You can give more room to that as a teacher. So this is basically flipping the classroom. Students work on specific items and give their voting or allocate points or write comments. To my opinion, I think this is a great score by this group, because we see virtual reality by far the highest one in as a learning innovation. But I'm not so interested in the consensus where we all agree on the most important item. What I want to see is I want to see where the biggest deviation is. In this case, that's on math. And so math apparently is perceived by some people in the group as not as a learning innovation. For example, Annie and myself, but I also see people that score it quite high, like in this case, Elsa and Karel. So I can start a discussion in the group. Hey, Elsa and Karel, can you please elaborate on how you perceive this? And I can ask Annie, for example, to also respond to that. The good thing is that that's what we call in the Bloom taxonomy. The bottom of the pyramid is basically everything that you learn. The higher you get in the learning pyramid of Bloom is that how you apply it and how you synthesize, how you justify, how you assess certain items and how do you apply them. And so the higher you come in the Bloom taxonomy, the more you're able of applying the knowledge that you've gained earlier on, either in life or during your classroom. So this really helps also to get rid of certain viewpoints or biases between people and really get, for example, consensus. So in this case, my goal as a teacher now is, of course, to get you to know the system, how it works, but also to examine which items and which learning innovations are by far the most important ones for the coming future. So yeah, it's obvious that virtual reality is 1, blended learning is 2, big data is 3. So this is my catch for today. I can either download this via CSV file, so I can use Power BI or other visualization tools to make very pie charts, specifically if the data set is real large, if you have a big group. But what I also can do now is I can, I'm going to stop the meeting and I'm going to extract the report in PDF and going to share it with the participants. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to stop the meeting and I'm going to download the report, and you as a participant, as a classroom member, in this case, is that you see in your browser a report, and there's a button, download the report, and I'm going to share it now on my screen, where you actually have a full report of every step that we took today. And so we had this session today, we had this group of people, we had an introduction. Well, normally you can write here a whole page about what the purpose is of the meeting. I can completely see which student and which teacher filled in what. And there's a whole overview of all the topics, including the scores and the deviations of the group. Of course, now we have a small group today, small group, a small data set and a small agenda, but the setup is presented to you. and also how you flip the classroom is presented to you. So I'm going to wrap up. I would like to thank Elsa, Karel, Megan and Annie for their participation, and hope to see you soon as a user of Meetingwizard. Thank you very much.